It begins not in a classroom, not in a lecture hall, but in silence. A man walking alone, shoulders hunched against the drizzle of an English morning. His suit doesn't fit, his shoes are worn thin. His face, angular, unreadable, looks more like a stranger's than a savior's. This is Alan Turing, the mathematician who would one day give birth to the digital age. But in this moment, he is not a giant. He is an outcast. From his earliest days, Alan was different. He ran awkwardly, spoke with a stammer, and laughed at things no one else found funny. As a boy, he would ride his bicycle to school miles away, calculating the gears and measuring time with the accuracy of a scientist. While other children played, Alan experimented, mixing chemicals in the family home, tinkering with broken radios, dreaming of building a machine that could think. Yet even then, the world noticed not his brilliance, but his strangeness. Teachers described him as disorganized, absent-minded, hopeless in handwriting and grammar. He was mocked for his eccentricities, his muttering, his habit of scribbling equations on napkins, scraps of paper, even on the backs of envelopes. He lived with his head in the clouds, and in those clouds he built his kingdom. There was one light in his early life, a boy named Christopher Morcom. Christopher was everything Alan was not, charming, confident, and socially graceful. The two bonded over mathematics, physics, and the mysteries of the stars. For the first time, Alan felt not alone, but understood. Then tragedy struck. Christopher died suddenly of bovine tuberculosis. Alan was just 16. The loss cut deeper than words. He was devastated, not simply by grief, but by the way the world carried on as if nothing had happened. From that moment, Alan retreated inward. He carried Christopher's memory with him like a hidden code stitched into his soul. His obsession with building a thinking machine, one that might preserve a mind beyond death, was not born in a laboratory, but in heartbreak. And so, the story of Alan Turing begins not with triumph, but with loneliness. A boy who couldn't belong, a genius who couldn't be ordinary, a man destined to change everything, but cursed never to fit anywhere. By the time Alan entered Cambridge, his reputation as peculiar had hardened. He biked miles in the rain, arriving soaked, ignoring stares as he attended lectures dripping wet. He chained his mug to the radiator so no one would steal it. He ran long distances not for sport, but to think, whispering equations to the rhythm of his steps. Professors saw something in him that others overlooked, a mind unlike any other. He was fascinated not just by numbers, but by the question that haunted him since Christopher's death. Could thought itself be mechanized? Could a machine reason, calculate, even imagine? He published a paper that would change mathematics forever. In it, he proposed the idea of a universal machine, a device that, if programmed correctly, could simulate any other machine. Today we call it the Turing machine. In essence, it was the blueprint for the computer. But to Alan, it was more than mathematics. It was philosophy. It was the dream of capturing thought itself, trapping it like light in a jar. To others, it seemed abstract, impractical, even eccentric. To him, it was inevitable. Yet, as brilliant as he was, Alan's life was filled with oddities that made him the subject of whispers. He spoke little. He avoided eye contact. He often wore a gas mask while riding his bicycle to prevent hay fever. He fastened his trousers with bits of string because he couldn't be bothered to buy buttons. His world was logic in numbers, but his humanity seemed invisible to those around him. And yet there was one thing Alan could not calculate: acceptance. He was gay in a society that criminalized love. His heart was a secret he could not write into equations, a truth hidden beneath layers of codes even he struggled to decode. It was this paradox, genius coupled with isolation, vision alongside rejection, that defined his early years. And it was this paradox that would one day save the world. The year was 1939. Europe was trembling. Hitler's armies marched, and the world was sliding toward catastrophe. Britain prepared for the unthinkable: war. At Bletchley Park, a sprawling country estate turned into a fortress of secrecy. The British government gathered its brightest minds to confront an impossible challenge: crack the German Enigma machine. Enigma was no ordinary code. It was a cipher that shifted daily, capable of producing 150 quintillion possible settings. The Nazis used it to transmit orders, confident their messages were unbreakable. Without breaking Enigma, the Allies would be blind, deaf, and one step behind at every turn. Alan Turing arrived at Bletchley Park with his trademark awkwardness: socks sagging, tie crooked, hair unkempt. Many underestimated him at first, but soon his brilliance became undeniable. Where others saw complexity, Alan saw patterns. Where others gave up, he persevered. He built a machine called the bomb, a massive electromechanical device designed to test thousands of Enigma settings until the correct one emerged. It was noisy, cumbersome, but miraculous. With it, the Allies began intercepting Nazi communications in real time. Historians estimate that Turing's work shortened the war by at least 2 years and saved more than 14 million lives. Yet in the war rooms of Britain, no one knew his name. He was a ghost in the machinery of history.
But for Alan, the work was never about glory. It was about logic, about solving a problem that demanded to be solved, about outwitting a machine that thought it was unbreakable. And so, in the shadows of war, in a countryside mansion filled with clattering machines, Alan Turing quietly became the father of the digital age. When the war ended in 1945, the streets filled with celebration. Soldiers returned home, cities lit up in triumph. But Alan Turing was silent. He could not tell anyone what he had done. The work at Bletchley Park was classified. The bomb machines were dismantled, the archives sealed. Alan, who had just helped save civilization, went back to his life as though nothing had happened. No medals, no parades, no speeches. Instead, he returned to Cambridge and then to Manchester, resuming his research. But his mind carried the weight of secrets he could not share. He was haunted not by failure, but by silence. The world saw him as an eccentric academic, not the savior of Europe. At Manchester, Alan began working on one of the first true computers, a machine capable not only of calculation, but of storing memory, executing instructions, and learning. For him, it was the natural evolution of his wartime work. For the rest of the world, it was science fiction. Yet Alan's habits remained strange. He spoke to colleagues in riddles. He scrawled equations on scraps of paper. He sometimes jogged for miles mid-conversation, leaving others bewildered. He was a man who lived both in the world and outside it. And then, in 1950, he asked a question that would echo across generations: can machines think? This question became the foundation of artificial intelligence. His Turing test proposed that if a machine could engage in conversation indistinguishable from a human, it could be considered intelligent. The irony, of course, was that Alan himself often struggled with human conversation. He could envision machines that might one day speak like us, yet he struggled to be heard by the very people around him. This was the paradox of his invisible victory. He had changed the world, but the world barely noticed. But history is not kind to those who live outside its rules, and Alan Turing broke one of the most unforgivable laws of his time. He loved another man. In 1952, Alan reported a burglary at his home. When questioned by police, he admitted that he and a young man named Arnold Murray had been in a relationship. Homosexuality was illegal in Britain. Instead of protecting him, the state turned against him. Alan was charged with gross indecency. His choices were prison or chemical castration, a brutal regimen of estrogen injections meant to suppress desire. He chose the latter, believing it would allow him to continue his work, but the side effects were devastating. His body softened, his spirit withered. The man who had defeated Enigma was destroyed by his own government. His security clearance was revoked. He was barred from continuing his cryptographic work. He became a pariah in the very society he had saved. And yet, through it all, Alan continued to work. He explored biology, Investigating the mathematics of patterns in nature, he studied morphogenesis, the way shapes and structures emerge in living organisms. Even in despair, his mind never stopped searching for codes. But the trial left scars deeper than mathematics could heal. His life had become a paradox too cruel to resolve. The savior condemned as a criminal, the genius treated as a deviant, the man who built the digital age exiled from his own.
Even as the courts marked him a criminal, Alan Turing refused to stop thinking. His body weakened under forced hormone treatment, but his mind turned toward a new frontier, life itself. What if biology, he wondered, was just another form of code? In his Manchester lab, he studied the strange rhythms of the natural world. Why do zebras have stripes? Why do seashells spiral? Why do sunflowers arrange their seeds in perfect spirals of Fibonacci numbers? To Alan, these were not coincidences of nature. They were equations waiting to be solved. He wrote a groundbreaking paper on morphogenesis, suggesting that chemical reactions govern the shapes and patterns of life. His mathematics hinted at a secret language of creation, a code hidden not in machines, but in the very fabric of biology. But while his discoveries were profound, his reputation was crumbling. The university tolerated him, but whispers grew louder. His students saw not the war hero, but the eccentric, disgraced professor. His body betrayed him with side effects, swelling, mood swings, fatigue. He endured it all with a quiet stubbornness. At night, he walked the streets of Manchester anonymous among the crowds. He still jogged long distances, as if running might carry him away from the shame stitched into his name. But there was no escape. In post-war Britain, the world had room for machines, but not for a man who loved differently. Alan's work on biology went largely unnoticed at the time. His papers were misunderstood, overlooked, filed away. And yet, decades later, scientists would rediscover his equations and realize they had anticipated entire fields: systems biology, chaos theory, even computer-generated life. It was his gift to see codes everywhere, in machines, in language, in love, in nature. But it was also his curse, because the world could not see him. In June of 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home. A half-eaten apple lay beside his bed. The cause? Cyanide poisoning. He was 41 years old. The official verdict was suicide. Many believed he had grown weary of his punishment, weary of isolation, weary of being treated as less than human. Some whispered darker possibilities, that his government, fearful of secrets he carried, may have silenced him. But the truth may never be known. What remains is the image, a bitten apple beside the body of the man who gave us the modern computer. It's impossible not to think of another apple decades later, glowing with a rainbow logo. The founders of Apple Inc. denied that their emblem was a tribute to Turing, but the symbol endures. A fruit bitten, a reminder of forbidden knowledge, a reminder of a man exiled for love. In his death, as in his life, Alan Turing became a riddle. Was it despair that killed him? Or was it one last cryptic gesture, a final code left unsolved? The boy who dreamed of thinking machines, the man who cracked Enigma, the father of the computer age, silenced in a small house, alone, with only an apple as witness. After his death, silence swallowed his name. His wartime work remained classified for decades. His scientific papers were neglected. To the world, Alan Turing simply vanished. Students studied computers without knowing whose mind had birthed them. The digital revolution unfolded, yet the man who had made it possible was erased. It was not until the 1970s, when documents about Bletchley Park were declassified, that historians began to piece together the truth. Suddenly, the ghost of Alan Turing stepped out of the shadows. People were stunned. This awkward, ridiculed mathematician had shortened the war by years, saved millions of lives, and quietly invented the foundations of artificial intelligence. And yet the country that owed him everything had destroyed him. The forgotten years reveal something chilling, that even the greatest minds can be silenced, their stories buried not by accident, but by choice. The rediscovery of Alan Turing's life came with a mixture of awe and shame. Historians praised his genius. Scientists marveled at his foresight. Activists pointed to the cruelty of his prosecution. Biographies were written, films were made. His name returned, this time draped in reverence. Streets, buildings, and awards were named after him. Statues were built in his honor. The British government issued a public apology. Queen Elizabeth granted him a posthumous pardon. But even as his legacy grew, a question lingered. Why did it take so long? Why must brilliance be crushed before it is celebrated? The rediscovery of Alan Turing was not just about him. It was about us. It forced us to confront our history, our cruelty, and the way we treat those who live differently. Today, Alan Turing is remembered not just as the man who broke Enigma, but as the father of artificial intelligence. His question, "Can machines think?" still guides us. Every algorithm, every chatbot, every self-learning program traces its lineage back to his 1950 paper. The Turing test remains a benchmark for machine intelligence. And yet Alan himself might have smiled at our struggles with AI. He knew the question was never just about machines. It was about us, about what it means to think, to feel, to be human. For all his brilliance, Alan Turing lived not as a machine, but as a man longing for connection. His dream of intelligent machines was perhaps another way of reaching for Christopher, of refusing to let memory die. Artificial intelligence, in the end, was born from grief. Look around you now. The smartphone in your hand, the computer on your desk, the algorithms curating your world. Every one of them is built on foundations Alan Turing imagined. His universal machine became reality in ways he could never fully see. The code he dreamed of now runs the world. We live in the age of Turing. And yet, in our rush to celebrate technology, we risk forgetting the human behind it. Alan Turing was not a machine. He was not an idea. He was a man, with quirks, with flaws, with longings never fulfilled. The digital age was built not by perfection, but by loneliness, by a boy who never fit, by a man who loved in secret, by a genius who refused to stop asking questions. Alan Turing's life forces us to reconsider what we value. We celebrate genius when it entertains us, when it produces breakthroughs, when it serves our wars. But when genius demands compassion, we look away. Turing saved millions, but he was punished for love. He was honored only after death, when apologies could no longer heal. His story teaches us that intelligence is not enough. Brilliance without empathy is cruelty. Innovation without humanity is hollow. Genius without love is exile. Alan Turing is a mirror. In his reflection, we see not just one man, but ourselves. We see our hunger for spectacle, our fear of difference, our ability to use people and discard them. We see how easily society can betray its brightest minds. But we also see hope, because his story has returned. His voice, once silenced, now echoes louder than ever. And in that echo lies the chance to do better. Turing's true legacy is not simply the computer or artificial intelligence. It is the reminder that behind every machine, every equation, every line of code, there's a human being. A human who laughed awkwardly, who jogged in the rain, who chained his mug to a radiator, who loved another man in secret. A human who in his final years found beauty in the patterns of zebra stripes and sunflower spirals. The invisible legacy is not the machine, but the man. So we return to the question where it all began. What does it mean to live a good life? For Alan Turing, it was not fame, not applause, not even recognition. It was the quiet pursuit of truth, the joy of discovery, the dream of a machine that could think. He was not a myth, not a tragedy, not just a genius. He was simply a man, searching as we all are, for a place to belong. And maybe his final gift to us is not the computer, not artificial intelligence, not the codes he cracked. Maybe his gift is the silence he left behind. A silence that asks us to listen, to forgive, to love, to remember that genius is not invincible. It is fragile. It is human. And that, in the end, is what makes it extraordinary.